from his first day. Just a quick introduction of the Minister's research. Also, some of the new laws that have come into place. Probably ask as many questions as you want to, and if there are other things that you want to invite the Minister to start his opening speech.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for your patience for being a bit late. We wanted to start on time, but the team came down, and we thought we'd give a bit of time, knowing that we're in Fiji, this unfortunate thing that we have, the so-called Fiji time. Something that, because of that, we decided to hold on a bit. But thank you for your patience, for those of you that came early. And I hope that our discussions today will be beneficial for you, because it most certainly will be beneficial for us in the ministry. Because we need to make sure that we propagate and get out the information on what is in our acts and our laws and the things that are meant, that exist there to protect both the employees and the workers of our country. You'll see the chart that we have, not the chart, I don't know what this, it's the banner that we have at the back here. It has the name of our ministry. And in the second line, we've got the vision of the ministry, which is basically what we're aiming for, decent work. We want to make sure the twin things that they have at the top. We have employment growth. We want employment to grow quantitatively in terms of numbers and also qualitatively in terms of the quality of that employment. And the qualitative aspect of employment growth is reflected in the first two words, decent work. Work needs to be decent. Under that, we have a listing of all the services that we do. Labor standards, productivity and research, our National Employment Center, and some internal units. And at the end there, we have National Occupational Health and Safety. And at the bottom here, we have workers' compensation and mediation services. So that's basically, in a snapshot, what the ministry is all about. And in terms of what we are trying to do within the ministry, what we want to try to achieve, our biggest target right now in the country is employment growth. In terms of numbers, in terms of quality. And that's the target that we have in our National Strategic Development Plan. Our 20-year plan has a target for us to reduce unemployment to 4%. At the moment, it's sitting at 4.5%. But we know that most of that employment is in fact in the subsistence sector. Second thing that we're aiming, one, enhance employment. Secondly, we want to promote and enforce decent work. What do we mean by decent work? It means that if there is an obligation by an employer to provide something to an employee, employer has to provide that. When that thing, whatever it is not provided, then the work is not decent. Huh? I think that in a nutshell is an explanation of that. Third, we want to encourage good faith employment relations. For a long time in this country, we have seen that industrial relations, the relationship between workers and management, sometimes has been more like table thumping and screaming at each other. But we want to change that around so that when we're talking about the relationship between workers and management, it's more about mutual consultation and dialogue, so that the purposes and the ends of both parties are met. Good faith employment relations. And you will see in all of the mechanisms that we have within our legislation, it's based on that premise, on developing institutions and process of ways of doing things so we can generate this good faith. Good faith is basically, I trust you, you trust me. That is something that's difficult to build. But it's the way in which we interact with each other in the industrial setting that can enhance that sort of good faith employment relations. So that's number 3, good faith employment relations. Number 4, very important to us, is safe workplaces. That's why we have National Occupational OHS at the back there. We believe that safe workplaces has benefits for the worker, which keeps the person healthy. And when you have a healthy worker and a worker that feels safe, it contributes to productivity for the enterprise. So OHS, Occupational Health and Safety, a productive human being, a healthy human being, is a productive asset for a workplace. Sometimes when we talk about OHS, we think it's just a cost. The way that we view it, OHS is actually an investment into productivity. Right? When you have healthy workers, when you have a safe workplace, that's what it contributes to. And the last thing that we're trying to establish through our laws in the ministry is to try to ensure social justice, which goes back to the idea of decent work, the things that people are entitled to have. Because in a worker
employer relationship, both parties have entitlements and both parties have responsibilities. An employer has the right to expect that the worker will give him his full knowledge, his full experience, his full time, his full commitment. That is the expectation for the worker. And at the same time, the worker has the right to expect from the employer certain things: safe working conditions, appropriate level of pay, no discrimination, all these sorts of issues. So when we have that mutual exchange, we will get a more productive relationship. That's the whole premise of what we do. In terms of, if you look at all the things that are listed on that banner, that's basically the sort of the crux of what we do in this particular ministry. At the outset, let me say that in government we value very highly the contribution of the private sector. It is the private sector that drives growth in this country. The tourism sector, now Fiji's economy is basically driven on services. Tourism, all of this banking, all of this wholesale retail is basically now 75% of our economy is services. So government values very strongly the impact and the importance of the private sector. We want to make sure as much as possible that we can enhance the impact and the growth of this private sector. And the good thing that we've been able to see with this emphasis over the past few years, we've now seen 8 years of consecutive economic growth, which is not something that is usual for Fiji. And this year is going to be the 9th year. And we forecast that next year will also be a 10th year of economic growth. That is something that government values. Now, in all of our legislations that we have under this ministry, there are some basic principles that permeate, that sort of you can intertwine them, woven into all of our legislation. The first of these principles that is always there is that the primary responsibility for resolving conflicts within the workplace and the primary responsibility for making sure that workplaces are safe lies with the parties that are involved there. So what I'm trying to say in another way, the potential for conflict is between workers and management. Conflict creators have the primary responsibility for resolving the conflicts. It is not the primary responsibility of the ministry to come in and resolve conflicts. You understand what I'm trying to say? It's the parties at work. They have the primary responsibility to resolve conflicts. By the same token, in terms of OHS, the primary responsibility for reducing risk in the workplace does not belong to a third party like the ministry, but those that are in the workplace, which is workers and management. So that is a primary philosophy that underpins all of the legislations that we have. Primary responsibility for conflict is the conflict creators, and primary responsibility for addressing risk is those that are in that place of risk. There are a number of other principles that you will find in all of our legislation. One is this issue of equal pay, equal work of equal value should have equal pay. We've seen that there have been a lot of instances in Fiji where different people may be doing, and in the past it has been like this. In the past I think it has been more, sometimes it has been racial or ethnic. Two people of different ethnicities doing the same kind of job, one getting a slightly higher pay. Right? We've also seen sometimes if there's a man and a woman, male and female, doing work of equal value, sometimes the pay is different. We want to get rid of all of that, because all of that is discrimination. We want to make sure if work is being done that is of equal value, then the compensation, the pay for that should also be equal. That's a very fundamental principle that we have. The other principles that we have that are embodied in some of the what do you call these things, conventions that Fiji has signed up, is the right for workers to join unions. Workers in this country, that right is also enshrined in our constitution. They have the right for, what do you call it, for freedom of association. Freedom of association, and part of that freedom of association is including their right to form unions, the principle of no discrimination, and a very strong principle in all of our legislations is the idea of social dialogue, that we solve problems by talking about them. We solve problems by talking about them. So within any organization, we establish mechanisms to help this discussion between workers and the management in the organization. And at the national level, we also have mechanisms where there can be discussion between employers, between workers or unions, and government. So we have bipartite, two-party discussions at the organizational level. That's why for OHS, you are required to have an OHS committee if you have how many workers in a work site? Do you know? Any workplace where you have more than 20 workers, you need to have an OHS committee. What's the reason for having that OHS committee? So that they can discuss issues about risk, things that can have harm people's lives, and do something about it. Okay? Also, if you're under our labor standard services, we make it a requirement. I think in any organization that has more than 20 workers, you need to set up a committee called a LMCC, Labor Management Consultation and Cooperation Committee, that talk about things that might lead to conflict so that they can try to resolve it. So I hope all of your organization, if you have more than 20 employees, you have these committees in place. These committees are basically there to encourage dialogue, to address issues, to talk about issues, to look at possible solutions to issues so we can enhance the quality of the workplaces. The other ones that I've talked about in terms of basic principles, as I mentioned before, is the rights of collective bargaining. Workers have the right to form unions and collectively talk about what they want and negotiate that with their employers, and that there are mechanisms that they follow to have these established. Freedom of association, and the last thing that I want to talk about is workers' rights enshrined in the Constitution. But that's a general overview. I think today we will see that we have the banner there. We have a number of charts around the place. Yeah, a number of charts. Hopefully some of these charts that I have here, I'll talk about briefly in terms of our wages. You'll probably be familiar with the fact that in Fiji, we have a national minimum wage. National minimum wage in Fiji is $2.68 per hour. No one is allowed to employ anybody in Fiji and pay less than $2.68 per hour. It's just a complete no-no. You're not allowed to do that. So that's the basic national minimum wage. I want you to give a copy of this to all of the employees that are here, this one. So we have the national minimum wage, then over and above that we have our wage regulation order, which you will also get a chart, copy of this chart for each of the employers. So while you have your national minimum wage, this wage regulation order defines the minimum terms and conditions for 10 different sectors. So if any of you, I think the gentleman from Namale, if you're at Namale, you'll find under this the hotel and catering trade, which gives you the minimum terms and conditions that you must give to your employees in terms of rates of pay, in terms of overtime, sick leave, annual leave, meal allowance, subsistence allowance, for casual labor. Casual labor, you know, is 25% loading on the minimum. All those details are here. So these are 10 different sectors in which these regulations articulate and specify the minimum terms and conditions of employment in all of those different areas. And the various sectors are printing trade, wholesale and retail trade, hotel and catering trade, the garment industry, sawmilling and logging industry, road transport, building and civil and electrical engineering trades, manufacturing industry, mining and quarrying industry, security services. Right? So I've asked Lina to make sure that all of you get this chart, and I hope you can put it up in your workplace. So if it, and also the town council, you put it up somewhere public so when people come in, they can see this. And you should also put it up at the PA and other places. So those are the basic rights. I won't go through the details, you're probably familiar with some of them, but you just need to know that. So if anybody in Fiji is working in any sector outside of this, if anybody is working in any of these sectors, they are bound by these minimum terms and conditions. But that does not mean you can always pay higher, or your benefits can be much higher than this, but it cannot be lower. Anybody else working in any other sector and they are not bound by a collective agreement, which is an agreement between workers and their management, and they are not working in this sector, they will only be bound by the national minimum wage. A national minimum wage, that level is basically for unskilled workers. If somebody is bound by the national minimum wage, there is no requirement there for sick leave, annual leave, and all of those other things.
all of the sick leave, annual leave, bereavement leave, all of that comes into play when you start working in one of these 10 sectors. I hope that's clear. I hope you can then propagate this message on to other members in the fraternity and the employer community that we have here. The last national minimum wage that we have and the review of these wage regulation orders took place in 2017. 2017, it moved up, and now what we are focusing in now is to come up with the development of a mechanism that will regularly review the national minimum wage and the wage regulation orders. We used to have wages council in the past. We're now looking at some new mechanisms that we can use there. Now, for employers, you probably will be very familiar with this, but I need to go over it again. There have been some changes in the leave provisions that we have in our legislations, and 3 of these changes will come into force on the 1st of January 2019. 3 of these changes. First is about maternity leave. In the current legislation, for every giving birth, every time a female worker goes to give birth, she is entitled to take maternity leave. The first 3 times she goes on maternity leave, the first 3 first 3 deliveries. Oh my God, I can't trust that journalist to tell us what that... Oh, you're a journalist? Oh, that's the journalist, right? First 3 births, employers have to give full pay. Every birth after that is half pay. So that has not changed. First 3 births, full pay. All births after that, half pay. But the only thing that is changed is the duration of the maternity leave. Currently, it's 84. By the 1st of January 2019, it will become 98 days. Not working days, but consecutive days. Right? Not working days, but 98 consecutive days. That will be the provision for maternity leave. New leave that is coming in place in the 1st of January 2019 is for the fathers. Paternity leave. Now somebody here laughing, must be about to be a father here soon. So if you're a father, you are given 5 days working days paternity leave when your child gives birth. I think this is the legal child. Not sure if it's the illegal child. But it's a child in the family, okay? Yes. It doesn't say about the de facto, well, it includes de facto relationships. So if you're also in a de facto relationship and you've been living together for more than a year, this can also apply. The focus is on the child. The focus is on the child. Mother and father to be there to look after the child. What's happening? Somebody giving birth out there? So that's paternity leave. That will also kick in on the 1st of January 2019. The third leave that will come in is family care leave. Family care is anything to do with your immediate family or your household. Kenny, can you just read the definition of household? Can you just read the definition of family and household there, so that everybody is aware?
Thank you, sir. Household means the occupants of a dwelling house who are financially dependent on each other, or an occupant of the dwelling house. And the immediate family consists of a worker's spouse, child, parent, and sibling.
Okay? So family care leave is to look after anybody that is a member of your family or household and something that affects them. The family or household family care leave is also 5 working days. Now this will obviously be an extra cost burden on employers, and it's going to have an impact on the bottom line, on your profitability. So in order to try to offset this, for paternity leave and family care leave, employers can claim 150% tax rebate on the money that you would pay for the duration of the time that these people are taking leave. So if you pay somebody $100 a day, and that person takes paternity leave for 5 days, that means the cost to you is $500. When you're going to do your tax rebate, you will not claim $500 as the expense, but 50% of that. So you actually claim $750, right? As the cost of labor during that time. That means your profitability will reduce, your taxation on your profit will also reduce.
That's clear. Eh? You get 150 tax rebate on paternity leave and family care leave, but not on maternity leave. Not on maternity leave. Okay? So that's the biggest change that we wanted to talk about for the LSS. The other thing that we want to stress here, very importantly, is the occupational health and services. I came into Sabsavo. What day did I come here? Was it Friday, Thursday? Thursday. I walked past the construction of the new courts thing down the road here. It was being built by a company called Shah Construction. All the workers were up there without helmets, without safety gear, without harnesses, working at heights. This is very critical for us, because if something happens to that worker, and he falls off, and if he dies, there's going to be a family that could lose a loved one, their source of income disappears, all sorts of negative things happen. So it's very important for us to create those very safe workplaces. So we have a whole set of regulations to try to make sure that workplaces are safe. And in this, in OHS, there is responsibilities that is assigned to the employee, and there's a lot of responsibilities also assigned to the employer, so that both parties need to work together to try to keep the workplace safe. And now in Fiji, there's an increasing emphasis not just on occupational safety, but occupational health. Occupational health. The biggest killer in Fiji today, our forefathers 100 years ago, they were killed by diseases that passed from one person to another person. Measles, all of these, dengue and all that. But today, those things are not really killing our people. They're still killing us, but not as bad as these non-communicable diseases. Right? Eat the wrong food, drink the wrong drink, not exercise your body. Those are the things that are killing us. So now, increasingly in government, we're talking about wellness, helping our people to become better. But I'm moving off. The thing that I want to talk about in OHS, we have OHS committees, but we have seen in the past that sometimes that there are some companies that even though we find them something wrong with the OHS, we tell them off, we probably find them, next time they're going to do it again, and they're going to do it again. So now we're going to move to the next step of prosecution. This is something that we have not emphasized very strongly in the past, because we wanted the parties to resolve it. Now we're going to strengthen prosecution for those who persistently persistent non-compliance of OHS issues. The other service that we have here, which is very important for us, is the workers' compensation. Workers' compensation currently, within our ministry right now, we have 2,000 cases that we are dealing with. And you know, when you have, sometimes workers' compensation comes, you need to compensate workers because your OHS is weak. If your OHS is strong, you reduce the need for workers' compensation. Right? So that is why our preventive focus is on OHS, so we can prevent workers getting injured or dying in the workplace. But when it does happen, currently we have more than 2,000 cases that we are trying to resolve. But the big change that is coming is from January 2019, if somebody gets injured or ill in the workplace as a result of work, it will no longer be handled by ministry. It will be handled by the accident, what is it called? Compensation Commission of Fiji. This is the group that took, you know, before we used to have the third party for your vehicle accident. This group has taken over that work now, so the ACCF. So the ACCF will be looking after workers' compensation in the workplace. Now for the vehicle accidents, you used to pay the third party, now you pay the levy to LTA. But for the funding of this, for the accident compensation in the future, in 2019, it will be funded by the levy that you currently pay to NTPC. You know, you all pay 1% of your gross payroll every year to the Fiji National University, to the National Training and Productivity Center, as a training levy. Right? Do you know, are you all paying it?
Yes.
Yes, you all pay it. You all pay that 1% levy, and I think half of that levy, is it half or 40%? I think half of that levy will be used to put in a fund to pay for the compensation if any worker dies or gets injured or gets ill as a result of the work. So that no-fault compensation scheme will kick in the new year For the cases that are existing, they'll be still funded the way that you're doing it now. Some of you have insurance to cover workers' compensation. For others of you, if somebody gets injured or hurt, then you have to pay from your company's pockets. For those that are working in government, government already set aside a budget for all of its civil servants. Somebody gets injured or hurt, that is funded by that money that is in the budget. So that is going to be the change that happens from the 1st of January 2019, that the workers' compensation will become a no-fault scheme, and it will not be handled by my ministry, but it will be handled by the Accident Compensation Commission. My ministry will continue to work on all the existing cases that are still in play at the moment. Well, I want to talk very briefly on our National Employment Center. We've established this National Employment Center back in 2009 or 2010. Yeah, National Employment Center. 2010. We have established in 2010. And recently, Cabinet has also approved a national employment policy. I'm not going to talk in detail about that policy, but that policy basically is trying to grow employment opportunities and the quality of employment for everybody in this country. But in terms of the work that's done by, is it still working? Hello? Mother, yes. Hello. Okay. Go ahead. One of the things that we do, we set up this National Employment Center to try to do two things: to help those that are unemployed, and also to help employers that are looking for employees. People that are unemployed, they come to the National Employment Center, they are registered, their names are put up on a database, and if employers are looking for people with certain qualifications or work experience in a particular area, we have the list that we can give these names and their contacts to the employers, so the employers can contact them direct. So that was the reason that we set up this National Employment Center. We've had problems in the past with our database. We've done a huge cleaning up exercise of our database. And now the database that we have, or the people that have registered with us from the year 2016, the number of entries is around 11,000 people that are there, and we have the list of all of their qualifications, of all their attributes. So people that are registered in Samsa, we have employees in Samsa who are looking for people with certain qualifications, degrees in hospitality or diplomas and so forth. From our National Employment Center here, we'll be able to provide that list. That list, I think I have to shout. That list of people that have those particular qualities. So that is the intent of the National Employment Center, to provide that assistance. But also, over the past 2 years, if we have people that are on that list, we want to try to help them to get work experience. You know, when people come out of an institution, they know all the bookwork. They got it here. But they don't really know how to do it. So they need to, the only way they can learn how to do it is in the workplace. In the workplace. So that's why under the National Employment Center, we try to arrange work attachments for those that are registered in our database. We sign up with the employers. Once the employers are hooked up, then we get these people that are on our database to come for 6 months workplace attachments. During that 6 months, they do some work for you, and they also learn for themselves. While they are on attachment, they are paid allowances. Anybody that is a non-graduate gets an allowance of $100 per week. That $100 per week allowance, half of it is paid by the employer, the other half we pay. The other half of the allowance we pay. If anybody is a graduate that comes on attachment, the allowance that they get is $120. Half is paid by the employer, half we pay. So we hope that in this arrangement, we can meet the needs of both parties. You get a young person that has some knowledge, that can contribute to your organization, and at the same time, you train him, you teach him in how things are done. At the end of that 6 months, you have a better product who is available. You may then either, as an employer, hire the person as a worker, or let him out and somebody else will hire the person. But at the same time, after that process, the person becomes a more productive, more well-rounded individual, and it contributes to his career development there. So those are some of the benefits that we have there. But I'd like to inform you also that the Fiji Revenue and Customer Services also has some incentives for those that employ people for the first time. So if you have somebody that has never been employed before, and you employ him in your organization, in the first 12 months of that person's employment, you will get a 200% tax deduction on the money that you pay to this person. So if I have my company, Chona's company, and I employ Poor Mau has never worked anywhere else before, and I pay him $100 per week. $100 per week. And $100 per week in 1 year, it will be 52 weeks in that year. So 52 weeks times $100 is 5,200. When I go and claim my tax, his salary, I will not write there 5,200, I will double it because I get a 200% tax rebate. Such it. 5,200, the actual expense that I will claim will be 10,400. So when they calculate my tax will drop. So my profit on my tax will also drop. Do you understand that? First time employees, you get a 200% tax deduction for the first 12 months in employment, provided the person has not been previously employed. Okay? I hope that's understood. There's also some assistance at FRCS. Is there a FRCS office in this town? There is, okay. I'm sure the more details of this you can get from them. They also give a 200% tax deduction for the first 6 months of placement for a student where there is part of graduation requirement. If somebody is studying at FNU or USP, sometimes they require them, look, for you to complete your diploma, you have to go for 6 months attachment to a company. If you take that person on for that 6 months attachment, you can get a 200% tax deduction for the money that you pay to that person for the time that he is on attachment. Understand that, So that's the second one, workplace for students. And then they have some other sorts of incentives on students on part-time basis. Students on part-time work, where the work is related to the area of study. There's also a 200% deduction of wages for the first 3 months. I will invite you to contact Revenue and Customs Service. They can give you this breakdown. And the biggest tax rebate that they give is if you employ somebody with a disability. If you employ somebody with a disability, you can claim 300% tax rebate for 3 consecutive years. Somebody like an Havana or deaf of hearing, when you claim for 3 consecutive years, you will, on your books, you will show that his pay is being paid is 3 times what is actually being paid. So that reduces the amount of money that you pay for tax. And under the FRCS now, they also give you a 150% tax deduction on if you send your employees to do any training that leads to a formal qualification. I think this is 150%. I'll have to check. I think sorry, I didn't put the notes here. Rohit, not here. Hang on. Let me just check something. Just try to check whether that's a tax that's on the wage or on the cost of the tuition. So if you have your employee and you send him for training, you get a 150% tax deduction on the money that you spent on the formal education fees. So if you send somebody to do a diploma or certificate, you can claim a tax rebate on the money that you spent for the tuition fees. All of these issues, all of these things are trying to encourage people to employ or get on attachment people that are looking for employment at the first time, and encourage also employers to invest in the training and development of their workers. Okay, while we're still on this, I have one question that I want to ask. Are any of you taking on people from NEC on attachments? Anybody? Are you?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Are you, any of you taking people from our National Employment Center on attachments, on these 6-month attachments?
I don't think we're getting from the National Employment Center. We get a multitude of applications from young people from the school, so that fills our quota pretty easily.
All right, okay. But none of you are getting attachments from NEC?
In previous years, yeah.
All right, why you come take someone? No, why I wanted to ask that, if you take people on the attachment from NEC, half the allowance will be paid by us, and half that you will pay. But why I wanted to ask that question, because in the past I've gone around and people tell me, your ministry is very slow in processing your half of the allowance. And I wanted to know if that was still a problem. Because if I talk to my officials, they tell me it's not a problem anymore. But I wanted to hear from the employees. But none of you apparently take on a neck. But consider it. Consider the hooking up with the neck. And if you want to do that, we want to be able to sign an MOU with you, Memorandum of Understanding, just to cement the way that it happens. And so that we can continue to provide that service. I think that's it. That's basically what I wanted to talk about very briefly before we open it up for general discussions. I will welcome any questions that you may have. Some of the questions I may not be able to answer, but I have a lot of experienced staff here from all the various aspects of my ministry that will be in a position to answer the questions or queries that you may have. So thank you for listening to me, and now I hand it over to DS to handle our question and answer session.
Thank you, Minister. Does the ministry have any training programs that are designed for HR employees that to actually certify or make sure that the person that we may hire as an HR representative is qualified and has a working knowledge of the rules and the guidelines and the laws, and stays abreast of all of these all of these changes as they come along. So where if someone submits an application to work for us and what they're applying for is the HR position, that they have some type of documentation that yes, we've had this training, I've gotten a passing grade, or I've been certified by the ministry that basically I know what I'm doing. I just didn't know if that existed.
We don't have a qualification where if you have that qualification covers everything, all the requirements of our law. But we do have certain training programs that cover certain aspects. For instance, for the occupational health and safety, the knowledge of the laws, there's programs that are required for that. And then also for, you have awareness to an LSS. There's also a number of programs that we do for our labor standard, all the wage rates and all of these issues. So there are programs, these programs can be done in-house, this can be done in-house, or they can come to a formal program. But there's a qualification per se to say that once you have this, you know everything in these laws. We don't have that. But I know that the universities, they do have programs on human relations, on human resources, and diploma and degrees. I am not too sure whether in their coverage they focus at Fiji laws or they talk about things in general. Also under the Fiji National University, for trainers, people that you employ as trainers, they have certification for trainers. So they do, I think they do a modular program, they have 4 modules, and once people come out of that program, they can become a registered training instructor or a registered training officer. But that's the training part of human resources. Something to cover the whole human resource thing, the human resource, the personnel, occupational health, safety, labor standards. I'm not aware of anything other than the things that are done at the universities. But whether it covers Fiji laws, I'm not so sure.
Thank you.
But I hope that helps.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
If the incident happened this year and the claim is done next year, does the levy take into account for them?
Does that?
The levy?
No.
No.
Levy will kick in for injury or thing that happens from next year. Anything that happens this year still goes in the old system.
Questions are not limited only to the...
I have done a fantastic job. Okay, if you don't have questions, we'll sit around. Maybe we'll. But after this, we'll just talk around and meet. I'll just introduce the team here. Here, next to Madan is the head of all the policemen in Dapodrome. This is the law 554. If there's anything that you'd like to